The title I would give to myself would be a city tour guide.
Social worker might be another one that you can call us.
Maybe a servant. That's what I do. I serve people.
What brought me to TriMet is the fact that I was actually looking for a career change.
My wife and I found out that we're having our third daughter, and so I just needed something that would give me benefits.
I started at TriMet 14 years ago in the Human Resources Department, but then I wanted something different, something out of the office. So I wanted to try driving and thinking that would be a change of pace, because usually your regular routine of life, you go to work, you go home, in that same little part you drive. But with the bus, you're all over the city, and I love it.
What I like best about working for TriMet is I get to work with people, I get to help people in some way every single day, and it's also an adventure every day, which I love.
I love being knowledgeable when people ask me questions about what bus to catch to get somewhere or where to go.
What we do at TriMet really does make the city move, because without the public transportation, people will get around, but not as efficiently. So I think it's real rewarding to be able to finish your shift and know that you had some part in today of getting people where they need to go.
I love Portland, period. I love it, the whole city.
I just love that the river is really close, the ocean's really close, the mountains are really close, so any adventure you want to do, you can do it here.
I moved here 11 years ago from California. What I like about it here is it's a little bit more low-key. It's still busy, but with a job that doesn't pay the highest pay, you can still get by and have a pretty good living here. And I have a family, so it's a great place to raise the kids.
I think most people assume that a bus driver just has to sit in their seat and drive a bus, but with our job, what I do is I help people.
There's some weird things that happen out there while you're in traffic and driving, and I really believe that there are days where we save people's lives, and people don't know that.
It feels really good to be the official of your own bus, the ambassador within the city, there to help people when you see it.
I've had a lot of jobs, but this one, when I clicked on career, I knew that they were going to offer me something that I could support my family on, to get the benefits that I need, to have a retirement, and really, I just welcome anybody who is really looking for a career.
For those that are thinking about maybe becoming a bus operator, do it. The title I would give to myself would be a city tour guide.
Social worker might be another one that you can call us.
Maybe a servant. That's what I do. I serve people.
What brought me to TriMet is the fact that I was actually looking for a career change.
My wife and I found out that we're having our third daughter, and so I just needed something that would give me benefits.
I started at TriMet 14 years ago in the Human Resources Department, but then I wanted something different, something out of the office. So I wanted to try driving and thinking that would be a change of pace, because usually your regular routine of life, you go to work, you go home, in that same little part you drive. But with the bus, you're all over the city, and I love it.
What I like best about working for TriMet is I get to work with people, I get to help people in some way every single day, and it's also an adventure every day, which I love.
I love being knowledgeable when people ask me questions about what bus to catch to get somewhere or where to go.
What we do at TriMet really does make the city move, because without the public transportation, people will get around, but not as efficiently. So I think it's real rewarding to be able to finish your shift and know that you had some part in today of getting people where they need to go.
I love Portland, period. I love it, the whole city.
I just love that the river is really close, the ocean's really close, the mountains are really close, so any adventure you want to do, you can do it here.
I moved here 11 years ago from California. What I like about it here is it's a little bit more low-key, it's still busy, but with a job that doesn't pay the highest pay, you can still get by and have a pretty good living here. And I have a family, so it's a great place to raise the kids.
I think most people assume that a bus driver just has to sit in their seat and drive a bus, but with our job, what I do is I help people.
There's some weird things that happen out there while you're in traffic and driving, and I really believe that there are days where we save people's lives, and people don't know that.
It feels really good to be the official of your own bus, the ambassador within the city, there to help people when you see it.
I've had a lot of jobs, but this one, when I clicked on career, I knew that they were going to offer me something that I could support my family on, to get the benefits that I need, to have a retirement. And really, I just welcome anybody who is really looking for a career.
For those that are thinking about maybe becoming a bus operator, do it.
evening and welcome to TriMet's Vision 21 Community Town Hall. I'm JC Vanetta, Managing Director, Communications, Marketing, and Customer Experience here at TriMet. We have a huge program for you tonight with a number of presentations. At the end of those presentations, we'll be taking your questions. So please, we want to hear from you. Please enter your questions and feedback in the chat box on YouTube and on Facebook. And again, we'll get to those questions at the end. And if you need further information on the plan, please go to trimet.org/plan. Now let's get to tonight's presentations. Here's our very own General Manager, Doug KELSEY.
Hi, I'm Doug KELSEY. I'm TriMet's General Manager. Thanks for joining us here today. Your time's really important, and we really appreciate you spending the next hour or so with us to learn about TriMet's vision for the coming year, but most importantly, to share your feedback with us. I hope you and your loved ones have been able to stay safe and healthy during these really challenging COVID-19 pandemic times. The pandemic has affected all of us and every corner of our lives, no exceptions. The Department of Homeland Security considers mass transit as critical infrastructure, vital for the nation's security and our region's security. Our health and safety never more so now than during this crisis. All of us at TriMet take that responsibility very much to heart. Throughout this pandemic, we have continued to provide service to our community, while much of the world has come to a complete stop. We do so with safety as our core value. Safety for you, our riders, and our employees. In a moment, you're going to hear more about the changes we made here at TriMet in response to the pandemic. Our service levels today are slightly less than they were before the pandemic, and we're pretty proud of that. And that's despite the revenue projections that are down substantially. We're being very cautious with our finances, your money, yet looking at ways to improve our service with little to no added cost. Steps that will make our service more faster, more reliable, frequent, and yet more convenient. Shortly, you're going to learn more about those plans. We're going to ask you to weigh in. We'll also update you on transit projects that we're working on that have brought important federal funds to the region and are creating much needed jobs, particularly at this time. We also want to share with you our efforts to reimagine what safety and security looks like on transit, on top of all the really good steps and work we've done. As society and communities across the U.S. call for racial justice in all avenues of life, at TriMet we hold fast to our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thanks for being here again. Let's now begin with our Chief Operating Officer, Sam Dessou. Thank you for caring enough to make a difference.
Hello, I'm Sam Dessou, TriMet's Chief Operating Officer. When the first case of COVID-19 was reported in our region, TriMet was already in motion. We were connecting with health experts, evaluating our procedures and what supplies we had on hand. And over the last 8 months, we at TriMet have made changes and elevated our cleaning processes to protect your health and safety, as well as that of our employees. Transit is an essential service. With the dedication of our operators and frontline staff, we've kept moving. For hospitals and social service staff and other essential workers.
When COVID-19 first came into play, there was a lot of anxiety about it, a lot of worry, as there should be. Now in these times, it's really important that our service is operating for the essential workers. I do have a hospital on my route, so I do have those nurses that need to get up there.
Now, as the region takes steps to reopen, we will continue to provide service that is safe for the community.
Well, I personally actually feel pretty confident that if I'm washing my hands regularly, if I'm covering my own face, keeping a few feet between me and other people, I feel confident that that really reduces my risk.
Early on, we connected with the Oregon Health Authority and the regional health experts, and we will continue to do so to this day to help guide us in providing transit during a pandemic.
I understand TriMet has taken steps to space passengers out, to increase cleaning, and we're really pushing messages not to use public transit if you're ill. If you are going to use public transit, use a face covering, and really respect what TriMet has put in place around spacing out passengers.
TriMet requires riders and operators to wear face coverings on board our buses and trains. And we have free disposable masks on board if someone does not have access to their own. We've given out about 2.8 million masks since May.
Hey everyone, it's me, Poison Waters. Don't be a drag. Always remember to wear your mask while on transit and out in the community.
You may have seen videos such as this online or on TV as we encourage everyone to cover up for their safety. TriMet limits how many riders are allowed on board so you can safely distance from others. The vehicle's capacity is posted outside the door. We've blocked off seats to help you know where to sit to safely space from others. We also have hand sanitizer dispensers on board most of our vehicles. TriMet has elevated our cleaning procedures in response to COVID-19. We've hired more staff and now have more than 300 employees who help keep our systems clean for you and our operators. Our goal is to disinfect touch points on our buses and trains about every 4 hours during service. Staff also disinfect the main touch points at rail stations and transit centers daily and thoroughly clean and disinfect our buses and trains, including operator areas, nightly. TriMet has also turned to innovative products to help speed up and improve the effectiveness of our cleaning. We've purchased fogging machines that get disinfectant into all the nooks and crannies on our buses each night. We're also trying out UV lamps like those used in hospital operating rooms to disinfect our MAX trains. We'll continue to explore other promising technology and practices. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenge for all of us, but we at TriMet have risen to the challenge to keep our service safe for all of our riders, now or in the future, when you are ready to get back on board. Learn more about our efforts and the principles guiding our response to COVID-19 summarized in an 8-point plan at trimet.org/health. Currently, TriMet service levels are slightly less than they were before the pandemic. We're running about 90% of the service we had been. That reflects lower ridership and helps us preserve safety as well as service coverage throughout the area. However, we are looking at opportunities to improve our service both short-term and the first half of 2021 as well as longer term as our budget and revenue constraints come into focus. Tom Mills and Brenda Martin with TriMet's Mobility Planning and Policy Department will now share more. We begin with Brenda.
Hello, I'm Brenda Martin. I'm a service planner with TriMet, and I'm here to show you the improvements we're planning to make beginning next year. TriMet's fiscal year 2022 starts on July 1st, 2021, and the improvements we're working on will go into effect in the fall of 2021 and the spring of 2022. We want to hear your thoughts about our plans.
The COVID-19 pandemic put the brakes on what had been TriMet's largest continuous expansion of bus service in our history. While expansion is on hold for now, we are planning to adjust some routes to speed up buses and make the system more efficient so that you get where you need to go faster and on time. Starting in the fall of 2021, TriMet plans to adjust 13 bus lines. We'll speed up service on Line 11 by removing part of the line that has low ridership and change the route to serve the Expo Center and Delta Park MAX station. Line 15 and 51 will move to Southwest Alder between Southwest 18th Avenue and the Morrison Bridge. This change will give riders a faster trip. We'll also separate the current Line 15 route on Northwest Thurman and create a new bus line to run between Southwest 18th Avenue and Collins Circle in Goose Hollow. We'll make service more efficient on Line 19 by keeping buses on Bybee Boulevard rather than turning off to go to Union Manor. We'll also reduce the number of trips serving the Rex Loop in Eastmoreland to better match demand. Line 32 will also be updated. The southern end of the route will serve Oregon City High School. The new route will keep buses on Beaver Creek, turning at Myers Road to reach the school, then continue to Clackamas Community College. We'll speed up Line 39 by eliminating some difficult turns on the route and discontinue outbound service to the Graduate School of Education at Lewis and Clark due to low ridership. We're also planning adjustments to Line 63. We'll change the route so that it travels from the Transit Mall to the Portland International Rose Test Garden. This will provide a better connection from downtown to the east entrance of Washington Park. Trips to the zoo will be provided by the Explore Washington Park shuttle. We're looking at combining Line 93 and 94 with all trips going to downtown Portland. Line 93 will be retired. We'd like to hear from you on weekend service on the Line 94 and whether you'd prefer trips once an hour between Sherwood and Portland or trips every 30 minutes between Sherwood and Tigard. We're also planning some changes on bus lines that serve Hollywood Transit Center. This is due to the planned redevelopment of the Transit Center and to make connections easier for riders. Line 66, 75, and 77 will serve a new stop at 42nd and Halsey. And to speed up trips, Line 77 would stay on Halsey between 42nd and 47th rather than running on Broadway.
Use the chat or comment feature to send us your questions or comments, and we'll answer them after the presentation. You can also leave feedback and learn more about these plans at trimet.org/plan. Now for a look at our long-range service improvement plan, let's hear from Tom Mills.
As Brenna mentioned, I'm Tom Mills, the Director of Mobility Planning and Policy at TriMet, and I'm going to tell you about our 5-year plan to improve public transportation across our Tri-County Service District. It's funded by the Keep Oregon Moving Act and provides a framework for improving transit, service, and access to it, especially in low-income communities and communities of color. The state requires all transit agencies to update this plan every 2 years, and that's why we're talking about it today. I'm going to walk through a series of programs funded by the plan, and we want to hear from you. Do you support continuing or expanding these programs? We welcome your comments and questions. Here's what's in the plan. Low-income fare. TriMet provides a reduced fare for people who are living on low incomes. The fare is half the cost of a regular fare on individual trips and day passes, and 72% off monthly passes. It gives those who qualify unlimited rides on our system for just $28 a month. Some 32,000 people have enrolled in the program since July 2018. Transit service expansion. While the COVID-19 pandemic has led to reduced service for now, we hope to resume service expansions in fiscal years 2022 and 2023. Where do you think we need more service or more buses arriving more often? Battery electric buses. Under the updated plan, TriMet will continue our exploration of clean, battery electric bus technology, and we want to hear from you on this. What line or area do you think the next group of electric buses should run? We will also continue to provide free transit passes to high school students whose families earn low incomes and set aside funding to provide transit service for seniors and people experiencing disabilities. We'll work with transportation partners across the region to make roadway changes that speed up buses and get them out of traffic, like dedicated bus lanes and these red transit-only lanes. Amenities. We'll install more bus shelters, some with digital displays with real-time arrival information, and make upgrades so bus stops are ADA compliant. And we'll continue to make safety improvements, like security cameras and better lighting so that all TriMet riders can feel safe on both the system and while waiting to get on board. And finally, preserve service. COVID-19 has severely impacted TriMet's revenues, both reduced fare collection as ridership has dropped during the pandemic, and less payroll tax revenue with more people out of work. Our plan directs some of the Keep Oregon Moving funding to preserve existing service and capital programs until TriMet's revenues recover from the pandemic. Your input will help us prioritize these initiatives, so let us know what you think. Use the chat or comments feature to ask a question, and we'll respond during a live question and answer session in just a few minutes. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, John Gardner, who has an update on TriMet's re-envisioning of public safety on the transit system.
I'm John Gardner. TriMet is reimagining our approach to public safety and security in response to calls for racial justice in policing and in all aspects of society. In July, TriMet reallocated $1.8 million in funding from traditional police services and other sources to pursue community-based public safety ideas. We recognize that not all situations that happen on our transit system and in the communities we serve require a police response. So we want to look at less conventional approaches, such as mobile crisis intervention teams for mental and behavioral health issues. To help inform this new approach to safety on the transit system, we launched a broad community outreach effort. We've engaged the community conducting listening sessions, town halls, focus groups, and an online survey, while researching best practices and regional security challenges. Our online survey alone received more than 12,500 responses. We've also formed a Transit Public Safety Advisory Committee made up of regional thought leaders on community and equity, as well as transit safety experts. Their feedback will help continue TriMet's effort to ensure the safety and equality of our system. We'll keep the community engaged throughout this process and post regular updates at trimet.org/public safety. This is a pivotal moment in our history, and TriMet is joining in the movement for racial equality. Our actions will help make our transit system better, more safe, equitable, and welcoming to all. Now to our final presentation, here's our Senior Manager of Community Affairs and Communication.
Hello, I'm Jennifer KOOZER, and as John mentioned, I oversee Community Affairs and Communications. I want to share with you some of the projects TriMet has underway that bring federal funding to our region and put people to work. Let's kick off with a project that's expected to open in just a few weeks, the Gideon Overcrossing. This new bridge, near the Clinton Southeast 12th Avenue MAX station, allows people biking, walking, and rolling to cross safely above the MAX and Union Pacific Railroad tracks. The project used some remaining federal funds from the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Transit Project, which opened in 2015, under budget, as the MAX Orange Line. The new crossing provides safe and easy access to transit and better connections between Southeast Portland's Brooklyn and Hosford-Abernathy neighborhoods, as well as a safe crossing if heavy rail trains are blocking the crosswalks. Now to a project that's currently under construction, the Division Transit Project. It will create a new type of high-capacity bus service between downtown Portland and Gresham. Once completed in the fall of '22, riders will experience faster, easier, and more reliable service along the 15-mile Division Street corridor. The project will include 60-foot articulated buses with room for more riders and multiple-door boarding for shorter stops. Along the corridor, transit priority signals and bus lanes in key locations will move buses around traffic. These improvements will reduce travel times up to 20%. The project, which brought more than $87 million of federal funding to the region, will bring much-needed safety enhancements for people biking, walking, and accessing transit. Those improvements mean it will also be safer for those driving through the area. You may have seen our crews in the corridor already. Overall, the project is creating more than 1,400 jobs, including 650 construction jobs, and it made state history with the largest construction contract ever awarded to a disadvantaged business enterprise, Raymore Construction. Learn more about the project online and sign up for email updates at trimet.org/division. Now to our Better Red project. TriMet expects the project will bring nearly $100 million in federal funds to improve our MAX Red Line, increase reliability throughout the light rail system, and provide new access to Gateway Green Park. Here's TriMet's Director of Civil Construction, Paige Schloop, to explain.
The MAX Red Line provides vital connections within our region, including service to Portland International Airport. As we continue to improve our transit system, we're planning to extend the Red Line service to the Fair Complex Center in Hillsborough and make improvements that will increase reliability for the entire MAX system. Riders in Beaverton and Hillsborough have been asking for more MAX service for years, and we can see why. Currently, the Red Line turns around at Beaverton Transit Center, and Blue Line trains, which continue west to Hillsborough, are often packed. We have a plan to extend the Red Line service to 10 more West Side stations, so that Red Line riders will be able to travel all the way to Fair Complex Hillsborough Airport MAX station. For this expansion, we will be improving tracks and switches, adding signals, and adding an operator brake facility. On the east side, we're making changes that will help the entire MAX system stay on schedule. We'll be adding a second track to sections of the Red Line near Gateway Northeast 99th Avenue Transit Center and Portland International Airport. With the existing single track, even a small delay on a red line train affects green and blue line trains passing through Gateway and has a domino effect that spreads throughout the system to the yellow and orange lines too. The new second track at Gateway will also mean faster trips for red line riders heading west by separating trains heading to PDX from trains heading to Portland City Center, Beaverton, and Hillsborough. With the new tracks, we'll build a new platform for trains coming from PDX. The new platform will only be used by red line trains coming from PDX and continuing to downtown Portland and beyond. The existing Gateway platforms will be served by red line trains heading toward PDX, as well as blue and green line trains. A new pathway will connect the new and existing platforms. North of the new red line platform, a new pathway will parallel the new MAX tracks over the freeway and railroad tracks, creating a new connection to Gateway Green Park. Design and engineering will continue through 2020, and construction could begin as early as 2021, with the project complete in 2024. We are excited to grow and improve the MAX system with a better red. To learn more, visit TriMet.org, Better Red.
Thanks, Paige. We'll wrap up with the proposed Southwest Corridor Light Rail project. The proposed project would build a light rail line between downtown Portland and Bridgeport Village, with connections to regional centers including West Portland Town Center, Tigard Triangle, downtown Tigard, and Bridgeport Village. The proposed project would receive $975 million in funding through the proposed Measure 26218, which, if it passes, would fund approximately 150 transportation projects in the Tri-County region. The proposed measure would be funded by a proposed tax on certain employers within the Metro District. If the proposed measure passes, these employers would pay up to 0.75% of their payroll in the district. The Metro Council may set a lower rate. If the proposed measure passes, employers with 25 or fewer employees and local and state governments would be exempt from the proposed tax. If the proposed measure passes, assessment of the proposed tax would begin in 2022. If the proposed measure does not pass, the tax would not be imposed and all aspects of the Southwest Corridor Light Rail project would not move forward. If Measure 26218 is approved, the proposed Southwest Corridor project would build an 11-mile light rail line between downtown Portland and Tualatin, including a 1.6-mile shared transit way where buses would run separate from automobile traffic from Southwest Barber Boulevard and Slavin Road to Southwest 5th Avenue and Lincoln Street. It would build 13 light rail stations, 7 in Portland, 5 in Tigard, and 1 in Tualatin, and add 10 miles of new sidewalks and 6 miles of upgraded bike facilities. It would build Oregon's first inclined elevator to take people between the proposed Gibbs Street Max Station and Markham Hill, and it would rebuild more than 10 miles of roadways and would maintain 2 auto lanes in each direction on Southwest Barber Boulevard between Nadeau Parkway and the Capitol Highway I-5 interchange. The proposed project would reconstruct 2 84-year-old viaducts that support Barber Boulevard to meet current earthquake standards, and build 4 bridges to take light rail over I-405, I-5, and Highway 217, and not impede traffic on those freeways. The proposed project would also install new signalized crossings at 32 locations, including 23 across Barber Boulevard, and rebuild or upgrade 21 other pedestrian crossings. It would add stormwater facilities to treat runoff from nearly 81 acres of impervious surfaces that currently flows into streams, rivers, groundwater, and basements, and it would add 4 park and rides with up to 2,000 spaces.
Learn more and sign up for email updates at trimet.org/SW Corridor. Thanks for your time tonight. I'll toss it back to Clay.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good evening, everybody. I'm Clay Thompson, Outreach Coordinator with TriMet. It's time now to take your questions for our panelists. If you would please enter your questions into the comment feature at either YouTube or Facebook. Now, this evening, we'll be answering questions that are only service-related. If you have any non-service related questions, you can email them to us at comments@trimet.org. Again, that's comments@trimet.org. This evening, our panelists are Tom Mills, Director of Mobility Planning and Policy, and Brenda Martin, Service Planner. So let's begin with a question for Tom. Tom, one of our listeners and viewers has asked, I see that you're setting aside money in your long-term plan for service preservation in the next couple of years. Does that mean service cuts are coming?
Thank you, Clay. Again, my name is Tom Mills. I'm the Director of Mobility Planning and Policy at TriMet. And let me go ahead and answer that question about possible service reductions. So as we all know, TriMet has been affected pretty greatly by the pandemic. Our service early in the pandemic was down about 70%. And as a result of that, ridership on the service was down about 70%. And as a result of that, we did have to reduce our service from 100% of what we normally do to 80% of what we normally do. Now, luckily, as the summer wore on, at the end of the summer in August, we were able to increase that service another 10%. So we now are at 90% of the service levels we were at prior to the pandemic. However, our ridership is, still down. Now it's down at about 60% of what we normally get. So what that means is fewer riders means fewer people paying fares, which means less revenue coming in to TriMet to be able to operate the service. Additionally, we also know that we are having an economic slowdown, a recession, if you will. And that is also reducing our fares through the payroll tax. So we are experiencing less revenue. Now, we did receive federal funding to help bail us out and help keep us sustained, and that's been greatly helpful. But at some point that will run out, and without additional federal funding, we may be facing pretty significant deficits. So at this time, it's unclear. The revenue picture is unclear for the rest of the year, but we should, just be, forewarned that it is possible that we will have to reduce service again. But at this time, we just don't know. We're tracking it as closely as we can.
Great, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that response. So Brenda, here's a question for you. One of our viewers has asked, how will changes to the Line 15 bus affect service frequency along Thurman Street? And will service remain the same as the 15 Thurman bus does today?
Thank you, Claire, for that question. Hello, everybody. I'm Brenda Martin. I'm a service planner at TriMet. And I think that's a good question. We're still very early on in the proposal. As of right now, we're really just asking if it makes sense to split that part of the Line 15 up Thurman off of the 15. I know today it runs about every 20 minutes to half an hour up to Thurman, and there's pretty low ridership. So our interest is to be able to take that service off of the Line 15, which is a frequent service line, and kind of balance out the service that is best for the Thurman route. So we are still looking to see what the service might be. We're trying to make everything cost neutral for this annual service plan, since the COVID pandemic has affected our revenue, as Tom mentioned. But we are hoping to get somewhere near what we can do on Thurman. I think there's a lot of questions about the span, so how early, how late it would run, and then if we can keep it at that half-hour service. So early to tell, but we'd love to hear from you on what you think would be the best sort of service on Thurman.
Great, thank you, Brenda. Appreciate that. So now we'll go back to Tom. A question for you. One of our viewers has asked, how are you planning to address the continuous declines in ridership?
Really great question. So, to be honest with you, some of the decline in ridership is self-imposed. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, and we are asking riders only to ride if they need to, because we want to make sure that there is space for the essential workers and those who really don't have a choice, and we want them to be safe while on board. But ultimately, of course, we do want to bring folks back on board to the system. Largely, a lot of that will be restoring the service back to 100% of where we were. And also, I think it's important that we communicate to our customers, and we have been, about what we're doing to make it safe on board. So what that means is, some of the things that we're doing is we have free masks on board. We have hand sanitizer on board. We have hired over 100 workers to clean the buses and trains at the end of the line every single time they get to the end of the line. And then, of course, the buses are cleaned and disinfected at night as well. So I think it's important for us to be able to, in order to get people back on board, it will be important for us to continue to communicate that it is safe to ride, and we welcome folks back when they're ready to come back.
Great, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So Brenda, here's another question for you. Are any of the max changes going to affect service to the zoo?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. None of the max changes will affect the trips to the zoo. However, the line 63, which we are proposing to change, will no longer serve the Oregon Zoo. The change is going to only go to the International Rose Garden at Kingston and Fairview. And from there, the 63 will travel into downtown Portland, creating a better connection from downtown on the Transit Mall to the Rose Garden. The zoo will continue to be served by both the Blue Line, the Red Line, and our partners at Explorer Washington Park will have their shuttle running as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. That's a good answer. Thank you. And so, Tom, let's go back to you with a question for you. So one of our viewers has asked about the Hollywood Transit Center changes that we proposed around that location, specifically line 77. And so this customer asked, the Broadway jog, which means the detour up to Broadway, on line 77 hits the two stops I use most frequently on that line. It gets closer to the center of the Hollywood Business District. I find that convenient. How much use do those two stops get? In particular, how many people use the stops outside the Hollywood Senior Center? And a lot of those folks might find it difficult to travel the extra distance.
Yeah, great question, which is why we have that out, and we're asking for input on that. That's the kind of input we're looking for. Let me give a little bit of background about why we're proposing that change. So the Hollywood Transit Center is going to be going through a transformation. TriMet has an agreement now with a developer to develop a mixed use development on the property. Much of that, the housing in that will be affordable housing. What that means, though, is that the buses will now have to stop in street. They'll have to stop on the street next to the development, next to the transit center. And so it provided an opportunity for us to take a look at line 77, how often we deviate up to Broadway, how much extra time that adds to riders who are riding through, and whether, to really kind of balance the additional time it takes to go up to Broadway versus the number of people who are getting on and off. I don't have the exact number of ons and offs along Broadway. If I remember correctly, it's 30 to 40 a day, which may seem like a lot, but at the same time, we have hundreds of people a day who are riding through. So the real question is, where's the balance here between trying to serve the needs of our riders who are riding through versus the needs of the people who are riding on Broadway, which I would say is about a block and a half or so. It's kind of a super block, if I remember correctly. So it's about a block and a half distance. Well, no, I take it back. It's 2 blocks between Broadway and Halsey, but from the Hollywood East apartment building, because of the size of that building, I would say it's about a block and a half from the entrance to, or the entrance exit of the building to the bus stop down on Halsey.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Brenda, here's one for you. I live on Northwest Thurman and currently take the 15 bus to Southeast Belmont and 60th. How would I get there once you have implemented your new plan on Thurman? Where would I need to transfer from your new Thurman bus to one that will take me to Southeast Belmont?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And I appreciate that includes the importance of the line 15 and the changes that we are proposing to the line 15 Belmont. So if you are traveling down from Thurman, you should be able to transfer at Thurman and 23rd, where the 15 will continue to operate. If you would like, you could also take the Thurman line down, I believe it's going to be 18th that goes southbound. To Providence Park, and you can transfer to the line 15 there. The line 15 Belmont is being proposed to move over to Alder Street, and that's because we believe that that will be a much more efficient route for the line 15 since it feeds straight into the Morrison Bridge. And so we hope that by taking out the jogs to get down to Salmon, we are going to save a lot of time for riders, as well as we'll be getting hopefully some transit priority on Alder as part of the City of Portland's Rose Lane project. So to answer your question, I think there'll be actually two options to transfer to the line 15 from the new Thurman line at either Northwest 23rd or by Providence Park.
Great, thank you, Brenda. So Tom, another one for you. Do we have an update on the double-decker and full electric buses?
Great question. So let me split that up into two answers, and I'll first start with the double-decker buses. So we were looking at the possibility of double-decker buses a few years ago, but we are no longer pursuing that possibility. So that is not something we're pursuing right now. I would say in terms of larger buses, you will be seeing some articulated buses on our system, particularly with the Division Transit project, and segueing into electric buses. We are going to actually be receiving in the next year an electric articulated bus. So in terms of electric buses, that program is still moving forward. We have currently 5 electric buses. They operate on line 62 Murray Boulevard. That's over in Washington County. And, you know, those buses operate over there because the facility we have to charge them is on that part of town. Obviously, we hope to be able to spread these buses throughout the entire system as we grow our fleet. You know, right now we are experimenting with different vendors. So the buses we have right now come from one particular bus manufacturer, but we have 10 buses coming in the next year, and those are going to come from a couple different manufacturers as well. One of which actually takes old buses, rebuilds them as electric buses, and that's the one that will be providing the articulated electric bus. So we're really excited to try the different vendors, figure out which one works the best, and then get those out on the system once we choose one.
Great, thank you, Tom. Brenda, back to you with a question. So will the shorter line 63 route allow for more frequent service?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. You know, it turns out it's not going to be that much shorter. I think we are going to be reducing the length of it within Washington Park a little bit more than a mile. I think it was 1.2 miles, but the distance to downtown being added is about 1.5 miles with the actual loop added. So we plan to keep the frequency of the line 63 at about the same frequency as it is today in the same span. So about 7 in the morning to about 9 at night, I believe. You know, we could see once we start building the schedule if there is any efficiencies we can bring into the line, but for now, our goal is really to keep that frequency and the span the same as it is today.
Terrific, thank you, Brenda. So Tom, back to you with a question. Is there any talk of a fare increase?
Oh yeah, great question. So I'll just real quickly refer a little bit back to what I was saying earlier with service reductions. So we are possibly facing a revenue shortfall, and we will be looking to make that up somehow. But right now, we just don't know about a fare increase. I will say that it has been part of our business plan for the last couple of years. We haven't raised fares for 7 to 8 years, but we have been kind of letting it be known that the time may come when that is needed. And so that has been in our business plan, but we haven't made a decision. It is something that we'll be looking at over the next several months as we're looking at the revenue picture coming up.
Terrific. Thank you, Tom. So Brenda, I have another question for you. Go back to it here. Sorry about that. I had several of them here. Concerned about the route change for line 15 and the routing of the Thurman leg. Regular commuters on the bus need to get downtown, and the proposed route does not go downtown. We talked earlier about the transfers and everything, but how long do you think transfer would take?
I appreciate that question, and we do understand we are building in a transfer to those who live and work on Thurman Street. But luckily, the line 15 is one of our most frequent lines. So if you are trying to get back onto the 15 Belmont, it's running every 15 minutes or better. And really in that AM PM peak, which maybe many of us aren't using, but before COVID, the line 15 was running about every 4 to 6 minutes. So I would imagine that once you get off the new Thurman route and wait for the line 15, it probably is going to come in at least less than 10 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. So Tom, we have a question for you. Excuse me, just a moment. I was very concerned about the removal of the stop by the Westmoreland Union Manor and line 19. They have over 300 seniors living at the Westmoreland Union Manor, and many that use the bus to get to necessary appointments. And they cannot walk to Bybee for bus service. And so the question would be, is there any flexibility with the plan for line 19 on Southeast 23rd to Union Manor?
Yeah, absolutely, there is. Just let me back up a little bit and make sure our viewers understand what that proposal is. So today, you might be hearing a theme here today about deviations. We're really using this as an opportunity to take a look at where we're deviating and how many people we're picking up and dropping off on deviations, and trying to determine whether we have the right balance. Are we having enough? Are we picking up enough people to make it worth all the through riders having to travel the extra time every day in their trips? And so, we put these proposals out to start the discussion and have the discussion. There certainly is flexibility. So the proposal right now is for line 19, before it goes over the Bybee Bridge going eastbound. Today it deviates to Union Manor Senior Home, and that deviation can take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, which may not seem like a lot, but at the end of a long day on your way home, that a 5-minute deviation can actually add up for you. So we do that 40 times a day, and at the Union Manor location, we average about 1 on or off per deviation. And of course, sometimes that's probably grouped. So there are times when people are going through the deviation and they're not picking anyone up and not dropping anyone off. So the proposal is to discontinue that deviation and then, and continue through and ask folks to walk. The distance between Union Manor and the nearest bus stop is about 1,000 feet. So, the proposal is out there. We'd love to hear from folks on what they think. There's a spectrum of solutions to that, ranging from eliminating the stop and the deviation to something in between where we just serve it less often, to not touching it. So that's why the proposal's out there. We want to hear from you and what you all think.
Terrific. Thank you, Tom. So back to you, Brenda. A question for you regarding line 32 in Oregon City and the extension on Beaver Creek Road past Oregon City High School. Will there be any stops closed as a result of this change? And will there be any stops near Oregon City High School, or will there be any new stops? And do you have any idea where they'll be?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We're really excited about this change on the line 32 to better serve Oregon High School. We hope that we are going to be able to serve the high school with this new deviation and not remove any of the stops that are currently part of the 32. When the 32 makes a turn towards the college, it actually doesn't make any stops on the way there. So we are able to continue to serve those stops. As for new stops, since we're so early on in this proposal, we haven't had our team of bus stop experts to go out to Beaver Creek and look at the potential for new stops along that new corridor. Beaver Creek is a very fast road, and we want to make sure that the pedestrian environment is safe and a good place to wait if you are a rider. But we do know we're going to continue, we will start to serve the high school. And once everybody's back in school, that I think will be an amazing connection to the college as well, when we'll be entering kind of on the backside of the college. So we're very excited, and we'd love to hear from you if there are locations you think that would be good places for us to stop on the new route.
Perfect. Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate that. So Tom, back to you with the question. And this is regarding lines 93 and, one change here to the question. Okay, so regarding service and service levels, HB 2017 money is new since the last time that service cuts were made. Will the HB 2017 tax that is still in place be helpful in preventing service cuts? And will it be able to be used for public safety improvements on board as well?
Thank you for that. That's a great question. So just to back up a little bit, when you hear the phrase HB 2017, that is the technical name for the Keep Oregon Moving Act that was passed by the legislature in 2017. That law created a new tax that, thank you, that you all pay on your salary. And that comes to TriMet, and it's intended for TriMet to be able to expand our transit services. It also pays for the low-income fare program. So the way we decide how to spend that money, we actually have a citizens advisory committee that represents a broad cross-section of folks living in the metro area, particularly equity communities. And they help us decide, well, really, they make the decision on how we want to spend those funds. And that committee is currently in the midst of making plans for how to spend the funds in the next couple of years. We have a draft plan, and that draft plan does set aside money to help us with possible revenue shortfalls. So, in fact, some of that money we can use for revenue shortfalls, but if it looks like things aren't so bad, then we can use it for other programs as well. So we are trying to, use, all the revenue that we have at our hands to be able to, to mitigate any issues that may come as a result of the current pandemic that we're in. Oh, and then in regards to safety on board, the committee decided that the funds could be used for physical safety improvements, things like lighting, cameras. However, they can't be used for, the committee does not want to use them for security staff. So we are intending to use funds to kind of make the system feel safer in areas where they're waiting for the bus. But the funds cannot be used for staff.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. So this is back to Brenda, the question for you. And this is regarding the lines 93 and 94 between Sherwood and Tigard and Sherwood and Portland. And so the question was, you were asking about weekend service and about what kind of service we would like on the weekend. Since 993 does have service and 94 doesn't have service. I think they're not sure which one it was, but they're asking about the hour service between Portland, or between Tigard and Sherwood, and a half-hour service between Portland and between Sherwood and Portland. How exactly would that work, and what are you planning on doing with line 93? Is it going to be retired, or what do you plan to do with that?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. I'm really excited about this change as well. The 93, so I'm going to just repeat a little bit of that in case some of the viewers don't know exactly the buses that are in Washington County. So the 93 goes from downtown Sherwood to the Tigard Transit Center. A lot of riders there then can either get off at Tigard and transfer to a line that connects them to other parts of the region, or maybe they're just going to Tigard. The Line 94 is more of a commuter route, which runs from downtown Sherwood straight into downtown Portland. It also goes to Tigard. It doesn't go into the transit center, but it does pass right by the transit center on Main Street and then continues up Barber, making some limited stops. It doesn't stop as often as other routes like the Line 12 Sandy. So our proposal is to take the hours from the 93, meaning that the Line 93 would be retired, and putting those hours into the 94 to be able to add more service to the 94 and a one-seat ride from Sherwood to Tigard or to downtown Portland, maybe in the midday, potentially adding a little bit earlier in the morning, a little bit later in the evening after that commute hour. So we hope that if you're in Sherwood and you use the 93 today, you can still continue to use the 94 in the same manner you do during the week. You can get off at Tigard Transit Center on Main Street and transfer if you'd like to a different bus, or you can go into downtown Portland, maybe how you used to do when you transfer to the 12 or even the 94 if you hadn't caught that bus. The main question for us really is the weekend. As our viewer mentioned, the Line 93 does have weekend service from Sherwood to downtown Tigard. What we want to know is we can keep that exactly as it is today. It runs about every half hour on Saturday and Sundays from Sherwood to Tigard. Or our other idea is we could change that route so that it Sherwood into downtown, but we'd only be able to run it continue to operate it in that half-hour window, but we would be able to provide you a one-seat ride from Sherwood to downtown every hour during the weekends. So that's our main question for you. We'd love to hear, are you using the Line 93 on the weekends to just get to Tigard and that's where you want to go, or you want to transfer to, let's say, the Line 76? Or do you really like that one-seat ride into Portland if that's what you're using it for today?
Terrific. Thank you, Brenda. So back to Tom with a question for you. Are you able to discuss the future of paratransit services?
The future, thanks for the question. The future of the paratransit system is stable. What's important to know is that TriMet's Lyft paratransit system is something that we provide for all our bus lines. So the way the Lyft system is set up is it serves all areas that are within 3/4 of a bus line. And that's something that we are required to provide by federal law. So as long as we're operating bus service, we're going to be operating the Lyft paratransit service. If we were to eliminate a bus line, we would then the Lyft paratransit service that goes with that bus line would go away. But that's not the kind of thing we're talking about. Yeah, we're talking about a few deviations here and there, but those deviations generally are happening in areas where there's so much bus service that the Lyft territory kind of covers everything. So we don't foresee any change to the Lyft paratransit system as a result of the changes that we are proposing.
Terrific. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your response on that. So now we have another question for Brenda. And Brenda, the question is regarding the line 51 and 15. Can you give us a little bit more of an idea of how removing the line 15 and 51 from Southwest Salmon Street in downtown Portland is going to be beneficial to riders?
Absolutely, Clay. Thank you. So some of the benefits of moving the line from Salmon to Alder are that we would be able to really remove that deviation. So I feel like that's the word of the meeting today. The bus does have to travel to Salmon, down Salmon, and then turn on Second to get it back onto the Morrison Bridge. There is 2 max crossings that the line 15 and 51 have to make today, which can obviously slow down the buses as well. So we think that just those 2 alone really speed up the bus. Again, another part of it is, I had mentioned the Rose Lane project, which is PBOT's initiative to make transit faster and more reliable. And so working with the city of Portland, they're helping us invest onto Alder Street to be able to get some bus priority, some curb extensions so the bus can stop in lane and doesn't have to pull out of the lane of traffic. And these are all ways that we can speed up the bus and get riders to where they're going faster. We also really like that the line 15 and 51 both travel on Washington when they're coming into downtown. And Alder and Washington are a couplet downtown. And so therefore, we think it might be a little bit more legible to our riders to understand that, you come in on Washington and you leave on Alder. And so these are all things that we think are really going to be beneficial to the rider and hopefully make that trip a lot faster to get home.
Thank you very much, Brenda. And this is going to be our last question of the evening, and this will be for Tom. And so, Tom, one of our viewers was asking about the line 19 again, and also about the line 11. And so the first question was about the line 19 and about the Rex Loop and the reduction in service. Can you give us an idea of exactly what the service level will be once that's done? And regarding line 11, what exactly is the future of that line? It doesn't run very frequently, so are you actually trying to get rid of it?
Yeah, sure. Let me answer those. Thank you for providing those questions. So let me talk a little bit about the 19 and, to let our viewers, some of our viewers who maybe don't ride that line, know what we mean by the Rex Loop. Again, this is another bit of a deviation when for trips that don't go to Union Manor. Those trips oftentimes kind of deviate off of Bybee Boulevard and go through a residential neighborhood in the Eastmoreland neighborhood. The streets are very narrow. It's hard to get the bus through there. And we really don't pick up a lot of people. We pick up some people, but not a lot. So we are recommending that we discontinue some of that service, not completely get rid of it, but discontinue some of it. So we'll be looking at the most heavily used trips so that we're still serving the trips that most people use. I can tell you that those trips are predominantly in the rush hour periods. So for folks trying to get to work in downtown Portland. So that's really kind of likely to be the trips that we would want to maintain, as well as I also want to point out students trying to get to Cleveland High School, riding the 19 up Powell Boulevard and then switching over to the 9 to get up to Cleveland High School. So those are the trips that we're going to be looking to retain. Whereas other low ridership trips are what will likely be really what we would like to discontinue. But again, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you think about it. These are proposals, and that's why we have this opportunity to hear from you. The line 11, there are 2 changes to that. First off, I want to answer the last part of the question, which is no, we're not getting rid of the line 11. In fact, we just changed the route a little bit so that we could serve the Bybee Lakes Hope Center, which many might know as the former Wapato jail that is now a center for people who are houseless. So we are now serving that on line 11. There was a deviation off the line up to the Evraz company, steel company. There was about 1 person a day who rode that. The city is actually going to be shutting down that roadway to do some work on a bridge. And it really created an opportunity for us to have this conversation with folks and say, a lot of people are having to ride through this deviation and there's only like 1 person a day riding it. Should we really continue this? The second half of that, on the other end of the line, we are talking about not having the lines go to Jubitz anymore. but instead go to the Delta Park Max station, both the Expo Center and Delta Park Max stations. We think that that is a better ending point. We expect that we would receive many more riders that way. Yes, today you.
Thank you, Clay, and thank all of you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your interest in making our transit system better. And a quick thank you to Brenda and Tom for all of their good information that they gave us tonight. So thank you. Now, if you still have questions, as Clay said, or feedback you want to give, please email us at comments@trimet.org before November 9th so we can get your questions answered and your feedback incorporated into your plan. As Tom said, these are proposals and we want to hear from you. All of our information presented tonight, including a recording of tonight's town hall, is available at trimet.org/plan. Again, thank you for joining us. Have a good evening and please stay safe.